Hey everyone, welcome to Entertainment 411, your weekly insight into the people who work in the Canadian entertainment industry. Our goal is to shine a spotlight on those who work in front of and behind the scenes. And today, on today's episode, we're going to be chatting with some producers and directors. My name is Brett Hurd, and I am a writer, director, producer. Instead of me explaining who I am, I made a little presentation video, like a CV, a video CV that we can show you. Charlene can run that. That'd be great. Hi, my name is Brett Hurd, and I'm a writer, director, producer from Toronto. In 2013, I wrote, directed, and produced my first feature, which won a bunch of awards and was sold internationally. And then in 2017, I made my second feature film, which is still picking up awards and sales. I spent many years as an actor and stand-up comic while simultaneously working in the world of advertising, which included writing, producing, and show-running multi-episodic digital series for brands. I also launched a project called the Incubator Studio, which workshops original ideas as they're being written and then shoots proof-of-concept pitch pilots. These have resulted in multiple festival wins, production company options, and a CBC development deal.
The mind is not a vessel waiting to be filled, but a fire waiting to be lit. Someone said that.
You are definitely qualified to answer this question, because you know me.
Oh, I don't think I like where this is going.
You have a tendency to speak your mind. A lot, we both know this. It's gotten you in trouble quite a few times.
I really don't like where this is going.
So I'm going to ask you this, and I want you to be completely honest with me. I need you to be point blank. All right? Am I a dick?
Yes.
This is Dr. Delman, our newest doctor here on staff, whom I have consulted with for a second opinion.
Your dog needs to be put down.
What?
I'm not sure if that's exactly the best.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. Your dog wants to be put down.
I've created commercials, digital series, short films, TV series, and feature films. I've worked with big budgets and little wee budgets and have always delivered on time and on budget. So if you'd like to talk about storytelling on any size screen, drop me a note. Thanks for your time. So that's my entire career in under 2 minutes, which I guess is a bit depressing. We'll be showing videos throughout the show of our guests highlighting some of their work. And let's get to our guests and some introductions. Our first guest is a man who has over 30 years experience in the industry and has produced over 70 films. He's the founder of Federgreen Entertainment, IndieCan Entertainment, Redwater Entertainment, and Pride Pictures. Say hello to Avi Federgreen. Avi?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Our next guest has produced over 20 award-winning short films, 5 features, numerous music videos, PSAs, and commercials. She's the founder and CEO of Film Coop. Say hello to Emily Andrews. Hey, Emily. I think you're muted, Emily. I think.
Hey.
There you go.
Muted. Thanks for
There you go.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Okay, our next guest has over 20 years experience in the industry. He's an award-winning director, actor, producer, and founder of Play by Play Entertainment. He develops, finances, packages, produces, and directs feature films. Say hello to James Clayton.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hey, how are you, Brett?
Good. Our next guest is, we have 16 guests, by the way. Kidding, we have 5. Our next guest is a music, film, and TV producer. He's an executive producer and a partner on Hold One Entertainment. He's continuously making his mark in the industry, both in front of and behind the camera. Say hello to Robert Ifedi.
Hello, thanks for having me, Brett.
How's it going?
Good.
All right, our final guest is an award-winning actor, writer, producer, and director. She's currently developing a new television series. She's the founder of Hold One Entertainment and the Actors Work Studio. She's been named one of Canada's top 100 Black women to watch. Say hello to Samora Smallwood.
Hi.
How's it going, guys?
Thanks for having me. I'm very well. Now, there are only 5 or 6 more guests, right?
A couple more, yeah. You guys have to, the screen slides over and the next 6 come on.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Thanks for having me.
I'm just going to throw some questions out and then we can get like a group discussion going. The first question, and if you could each kind of go through your answers for this, that'd be great. What was your journey like to becoming a film and TV producer and director? So how was that path for you? What brought you to this? Avi, why don't we start with you?
Oh, I think you're muted, Avi.
I think you're muted. No?
I can go first.
Okay, yes, for sure. Yeah, why don't you go first?
I do that. I have been acting since I was a kid and putting on scenes as a kid in my room by myself with my action figures and singing and drawing and all of that. And I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And what happened there was a film boom, so to speak, and they started auditioning people, and I got the acting bug, and I started doing some roles. And I thought to myself, hey, there's something to this, even though I completely stunk. I was a horrible actor. I had no craft. I had nothing. But I was determined to make it. So I moved to Vancouver and I threw myself into every independent production I could. And what I found was while I was, honing my skills as an actor, I really enjoyed all of the crew positions as well. And I learned that. And then at 29, I decided to make the dangerous and unfortunate mistake of producing my own independent film, with all of the foibles that you undertake there. Since then, I fell in love with it, and I've been increasing my productions and basically producing a feature film every year and a half since then. I've been very lucky to found a great team of collaborators. Learned, distribution as well, and interned at some distribution companies and sales companies. So I could really figure out how films were being put together on a financial level and marketed. And then after, about 12 years of producing independent features, people said, you should direct. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to direct an action movie, which I did, which was Bulletproof. And then that led into Get Fast, which is the most current film that got released.
That's over what period of time was all this? That's an amazing story.
The 12 years, 12, 13 years. Well, from the start of the producing, but I've been, I'm 40 now. So I've been acting since I was like 5.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. That's awesome. Great. Emily, why don't you go next?
Sure. Kind of similar, excited by the acting field. I went to arts elementary school, arts high school, post-secondary in the UK. I studied theater there at Lambda, and I was also kind of making projects happen with friends, and I was in film and TV before going to theater school. So then when I moved from London to Toronto, then I met a group of people and I said, hey, like, let's make our own path. Let's not wait for people to make it for us. And so we started making shorts. We started making demo reels. We kind of just thought, how can we play around and like I said, not sit by the phone. And then as a result, we just ended up making more and more and more. And we started as a larger collective meeting monthly, having chats and collaborating more. But then it kind of whittled down to people we use often. But the main producers are Jen Pogue, Laura Norden, and myself. And so we co-produce with a lot of other groups, including Avi's production. He taught me a lot of what I know, actually, which is amazing. And yeah, so now we're doing features. We're doing shorts still. We love doing shorts because you get a little taste of, a genre or something that you want to experiment with, or, you get to branch out and have some fun, right? We have our web series. But yeah, mostly we're doing more features now. So that's
okay. Cool. Robert, what about you?
So I came a little late in the game. I was in the corporate world doing procurement, but in arts, I was mostly into music. I was producing music. I managed some artists around the city. And then I met the lovely Samora Smallwood, who injected me with the acting bug. And I was just so fortunate that the first things I went out for, I booked. And I just stumbled my way into the union. And again, like James, I sucked, of course. And so after a few commercials, I started taking classes, getting my skills up, got an agent. And I guess for the past 8-9 years, it's just been acting. And then me and Samora, we started a production company. we started with micro shorts and demo reels. And from there, we had a short that gone to the Blood and Snow Festival last year. And it's still in this festival run this year. And then from there, we got our green light, our first show with Bell TV5 called Coming Home, which is going to air sometime in 2005. And we're just trailblazing a path for each other.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Samora, what about you?
I feel like Robert said it. No, I'm kidding. He didn't. I will spare you the long story about the loquacious child I was, a dramatic child. Suffice to say, it's really nice to hear that everyone has a similar entree. 1 second. 1 sec. Sorry. Oops, my screen's good. Okay. And now it's really exciting because, like, I got a degree in theater. I love acting and have acted, and to this day, I'm very blessed to make a living as an actor. But what really was on my heart was I wanted to I kept saying I'm a vision board person, and I kept putting on my vision board, I want to create emotionally resonant work that matters to the community. And I just kept kind of saying it over and over again and didn't know for sure what the shape of that was. And then I just started writing, and I took it really seriously. I studied a lot and just broke down over the summer, one summer when I was in LA right after the strike, 100 scripts maybe, and started to see how much of an impact you can make by telling your own story. So like Robert said, we got a show greenlit for Bell TV1, which was a really cool ground to learn what that's like to show, run, produce, direct, write, have actors cast. Like, for all of you that have been doing this for so long, I applaud you. I applaud you. Okay. It's a lot of hard work. I feel like it's, until you start doing it, you have no idea. And then by doing this, you appreciate producers so much more. It's a really big job, but I'm excited for the projects we have in development. We have 2 series in active development, as well as a feature that we're hoping to get to camera in 2025 because we have the most massive chunk of our funding in place. So long ramble over. I like movies, TVs, and shows and movies.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
And TV shows, in case I didn't say, and plays.
Avi, is your audio working? Oh, I don't think it is. Is it? Can we hear you?
No.
No. Okay. Well, can anyone read lips? Can anybody? No. So I'll just add in. My background is, again, the same as the 4 of you. I started as an actor and transitioned into writing and directing, and then was sort of. I ended up producing out of necessity because a project I was on had some issues and whatever. So it wasn't by choice, it was almost not by necessity. But I found it interesting, the transition from acting into behind the scenes, for me anyway, was more of, I was an actor for a long time. I became less satisfied with the storytelling aspect of just repeating the words, as opposed to getting to the core of telling the story. And that's really what kind of drove me to start off with the writing. And then I think, for probably most people, when you are writing, you see it, like you have the vision of what you're writing. And so I love the idea of making that, actually creating that as the director. So I'm wondering if, for the 4 of you that have the background in acting, do you miss acting at all? Do you have any desire to kind of step back into that arena?
I still act.
You do?
Yeah. So one of my shows just aired, Brilliant Minds.
Okay.
I'm in episode 3 in that. I recently did What We Do in the Shadows, episode 6, I think.
Hey, no way.
Yeah.
Cool. I want to see that.
Yeah, it's a funny episode.
So what about the rest of you? Do you guys still miss it, or do you kind of go, thank God that's behind me?
Well, I still act. I mean, I played one of the leads in Get Fast, the action feature that I directed, and I still audition and I still put myself out there.
Yeah.
I will say, to add to what you said, Brett, when I started writing, because I've been writing, throughout my career, but Bulletproof and Get Fast were my first professional forays into, okay, I'm going to sit down and actually do this. To me, it was the first time I started to really understand acting, really understand the function of an actor from a film perspective too, in terms of beats.
Yeah.
And what's appropriate, for certain points in the story. And that's not to say that, I'd want to walk on the set and be prescriptive about anything. You want to be, have spontaneity and, listen, do your Meisner. I'm sure everyone's, their Meisner technique. But yeah, I mean, I still love to act. I think if there's an opportunity, I'll do it until I can't walk on the set anymore.
And I think to your point, James, it's an interesting industry in that the more you know about the other categories, the better you are at the one you're doing. If you're an actor, you're a better director. If you're a writer, you're a better editor. Like, as long as you know all these different aspects, it feeds into the overall machine, I think.
I wholeheartedly agree, 100%. Because real quickly to add, like the most I learned about screenwriting was from editing. So like I was editing a lot of feature films, and then I started to see what was actually working, and then that informed how to write the scripts.
That's awesome. Avi, I think
that's funny that you say that, because I had the exact same experience similarly. So the series Coming Home that we just did for Bell TV One, we did season 1. Yes, in the editing, I'm seeing, it's such a good point when you're writing what's working, what can still be trimmed even further. But I'm still an actor now. It's my main passion, and I'm pulling a like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Donald Glover, Ray thing. I'm building a media empire. Remember that I said it here.
Avi, I think your mic's working now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank the Lord. Technology. I'm getting too old for technology, I think.
So let's rewind this, and if you just give us a bit of how you got into this and how you got
so I mean, I didn't start my career, my work career in film. I didn't go to film school. I was actually in the computer industry, and I left a very lucrative job in 1994 to start as a location PA in film, with the goal that I was going to produce my first film within 15 years of being in the business. And I produced my first film, which happened to be a movie called 1 Week with Joshua Jackson in my 13th year. And since then, I've produced over 70 films. I've had 2 first feature initiatives, IndieCan 10K and IndieCan 20K, where I raised $1.5 million of in-kind services to help 8 first features make their films. And then I started my distribution company in 2011. I've released over 200 titles in Canada and the US.
Wow. So obviously it was the right career change.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I've wanted to do since I was 9 years old. So I applied to film school. I didn't get in. So back in 1983, the wave of the future was computers. So
So that was kind of a ballsy move, though, right? If you're having success in the computer world, to kind of do a 180 in that at that point.
Yeah, I mean, my job at the time, I was making over 80 grand a year in 1994, and my first year in film, I made 19,000.
Yeah. Wow.
So you know,
look at you now.
Look at me now. I'm making less money today than I was in 1994.
Well, yeah, but you're happy.
Well, okay. That's it, really? I don't know. I'll get back to you.
So one thing I actually want to bring up, which is tied into what we were just talking about learning all the different aspects of this industry. It seems to me that as the technology has evolved over the last, I guess, 15, 20 years now, where you can shoot things on this as opposed to on actual film, and everything is so consumer friendly, it makes it more accessible to actors to become storytellers, to actually, you can have a laptop where you get a Final Cut Pro and Final Draft, and you go from screenwriter to editor, which was never the case, certainly when I was coming up, and I'm sure, when some other people were coming up. So it's much more accessible to people now, which could never happen years ago. So I teach an entrepreneur class at George Brown College. And it's one of the first things I teach these young kids. It's I had to walk to school in the snow. It's like one of those, it was so tough when we were young, but it's so easy now. It's so much easier. And not only that, you can literally shoot something, upload it to Vimeo, enter it into every festival possible from a film freeway without ever leaving your room. So it's crazy. So anyway. Okay, so what project are you guys most proud of in your career so far, of all the ones you've done? Anybody can jump in.
I mean, I'll say the film that my directorial debut feature, Home Free, which is playing film festivals all around the place these days, that Emily was one of the producers on. Actually, I executive produced Emily's, I think, first feature as a producer called The Cocksure Lads, way back when, and I had never met Emily until that time, and she's grown as a producer and a mentor in the industry since. So
it's amazing.
But Home Free, so Home Free is a feature film, dark drama. Tried to get funding 2 years in a row, got turned down by everybody, and ended up making it independently with private money from my father-in-law, and a lot of blood and sweat and tears. And we made the film, and it's playing festivals now. I pre-sold the film to Super Channel and Hollywood Suites. And I'm going to release it in Canada probably around June next year after it's done its festival. I have festival bookings right till June. And then I'll release it in Canada and likely also in the US, and I'm trying to sell it internationally.
Amazing. That's your directorial debut?
As a feature, I've directed 2 MOWs, one from Mar Vista and one independently, and then a short that Emily also produced with me called Red Balloon.
That's awesome. Who else? What are you working on, or what are you most proud of the things that you've done so far?
Okay, I just have to say we did. Sorry, who did I cut off? Is that you, James?
Yeah, it was me, but that's okay.
We came in at the same time.
All good.
The show that we just did, Coming Home, because it was our first experience doing a series and taking it from the pitching stage and just the idea germination stage to pitching, and the team over there is so supportive. And then, especially as an emerging female filmmaker of color, you know, to have people trust you and to bring a team together, and everyone has they're following this vision of this story that you've written, and everyone's excited, and it's your job to create a culture on a set. And also I was starring in it, and to just see the capacity that I grew certainly as a person. I directed it as well. James, I would love to talk to you later about what that experience was like for you, directing something you wrote and starred and had action. So Coming Home, for sure, and we're in the edit now, and it's looking great, and it's still been a very collaborative experience. So that, and then we have a feature film called Bet and D, which is going to shoot in Newfoundland, which is my home province. And I am half Newfoundlander, half West African, and I just wanted to create a story about that and coming from a place like Newfoundland. And it's a beautiful film, and we have a great team together. So that is going to be tied for the project I'm most proud of. We haven't done it yet, but it's going to be really special. And
that's awesome.
Wow.
James, what about you?
Well, I would say probably my most recent 2 productions that I was fortunate enough to direct, like Get Fast, which is the sequel to Bulletproof, I'm immensely proud of. I would say Bulletproof, which was released limited theatrical and digital and on demand by Lionsgate in 2022, would be what I'm most proud of. Mostly because it was my directorial debut, but also I thought, looking back on that experience now, I think it's a really good story to inspire other independent filmmakers, because how I got that film done was I wanted to make an action movie that was fun. So I took the gumption to write the script. And what we did was I wanted to put my money where my mouth was, and I went out and I shot the opening 7-minute cold open. So it's got a James Bond style open where it's just nonstop action. Both films do.
Sick.
So we went for 3 days. We shot that, and then I took it down to Lionsgate, and they watched it, and they went, "Okay, you got to go make your feature now." And so we went and made the feature, and we got Vinnie Jones as the villain, and Vinnie Jones is exactly what you think he is in real life. He's a badass, and he's in front of the screen and behind. And we shot that film, and it was a magical experience over the summer of 2021. And then it led to the sequel, Get Fast, which is out digitally and on demand right now, and it's playing theatrical overseas in some countries. And maybe there'll be a third one. We'll see where it leads.
What was the time frame between the first one and the second one? What was the period of time?
So I shot the first one in 2021 and the second one in 2023. So I started writing the sequel script when I saw the first cut of Bulletproof 1. Because to be honest with you, I wanted to do an action film, but it was kind of a lark in some ways. My 3-year-old son is trying to get into the office. You can hear that squeaking. He's decided he wants to. Hi, Jeff. Hello, son.
Does he want to say hi?
He's auditioning.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But I started, when I saw the edit, I was surprised that it actually had legs. And so I thought, okay, well, I better get a script written because I think a sequel's going to be possible. Yeah. Even if it wasn't, I was willing to take the hedge, and then it turned out to be.
And so one last question on this, because I'm fascinated by the sequel aspect of it. So did the first one help you get financing for the second one?
It 100% did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, 100%. And what I did in order to kind of hedge my bets, you know, in case the first one didn't perform and, you know, I'm spending all this time on a sequel script, is I did it in a serialized fashion, much like, you know, the first 3 Die Hards or Indiana Jones or anything like that. You know, the protagonist is called the Thief, but it's a new venture. It's different villains. It's different friends. And so you can jump right into the sequel. But if you've seen the first one, it could kind of help inform and spice up a little.
Right. Very cool.
Super cool.
Emily, Emily, how about you?
Hey, it's hard to say what you're most proud of, because I find like during the journey that I've had thus far is everything kind of adds to the next in some way. And each challenge that we've done for Film Coop is like, oh, let's try this because it's something different, or let's try this because it's new and exciting. But I have just a couple I want to mention. Even though it says the most proud of, I see that some other people said a couple too. So I'm going to cling on to that. Right now we have our digital series, Less Than Kosher, which is doing great. It's won so many awards, and it's hopefully going to be picked up to become a television show. So we're close to that too. And it's a beautiful story. It's a musical comedy as well as dark comedy. It's, you know, I have Jewish family, so I'm tied into that as well. And yeah, it's funny and touching, and it looks amazing. And we took this much money and made it this big. So amazing. I'm so happy to have that. Things I do for money is one of the first features that, I mean, I did a few features before that, but this was like huge. We had action, we had music, we had ginormous casts, we had you know, a lot going on. I got to work with Avi very closely. I got to work with Warren P. Sonoda, and all 3, Jen, Laura, and myself, were able to produce it. And that's, you know, one of us is usually the lead, so that was a beautiful moment to bring us all together. And then the other one is I produced a feature called Night Talk, where I got to work with Don Shabib, who is just like a Canadian legend. And that was, I produced it by myself. And that was like day and night putting into it. And I acted in it. Wow. And we got into TIFF. So it was just like, you know, these things that it was like, oh, wow. Yeah. And so I'm quite proud of that as well. So those are just a few to mention.
Awesome.
Yeah. Also, the unique thing about Things I Do for Money is none of the actors had ever acted before.
Oh
really.
My gosh, so many, so many.
And we had
a lot of non-union newbies. Yeah,
I think we had 54 cast members.
Oh,
and the budget was under $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And like so many locations, and just it was
some other locations.
An undertaking. Like we were go every
13 days. I think it was 13 main unit days, and then a couple days of splinter. Yeah,
it was wild.
How small was your crew? You must have had like a real skeleton crew, I'm assuming, for that.
It was pretty small. Yeah,
about 12 people maybe.
Yeah.
Wow. Robert, what about you?
So I'd have to echo Samora's sentiments with Coming Home. It was just a crazy experience from concept to shooting on, and then watching the post is just crazy. Wearing multiple hats. So again, in front and behind the camera, acting it as well. So that was just amazing. And just, we created, like, I guess we coined this phrase, it's a romantic dramedy, where there's romance, comedy, and drama all mixed together. And the fact that seeing like Samora write this and then turn it from just an idea that she thought into something that she's acting and starring in? Like,
yeah,
can be more proud of her, proud of us and our company, how
That's
this story is what launched our company as well. So I wouldn't have had it any other way.
That's awesome.
Can I jump in really quickly? Because this is a unique situation where you have partners who just made a thing together. I just want to give the so polished answer of what Robert's saying. And I want to echo what both you and Emily and Avi said, is that you don't really know sometimes what you're going to do with this teeny tiny amount of money that you get. And that's why I was giggling while you were talking, Emily, because when you're producing, that same thing. Yeah, so many locations, and you realize, wow, I have to get really creative. So I wanted to just offer that and accept those flowers from you, Rob. And it's nice that so many of us, I hope to do work the way all of you have done with the prestige and getting movies into the festivals. I'm telling you, I really mean that sincerely when I say having done this experience made me have so much respect, admiration, and gratitude for producers more than I ever had. And I already had a lot of it. I have a lot of friend mentors who are producers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very inspired by you.
So let's go from this sort of warm and fuzzy group hug question about what do we love to more of the darker side of this. So I'd love to know what's been the hardest or longest or most rejected project that you've stuck with to try to get the financing together and get the distribution deals or the sales. Is there one or two that you can kind of go, man, this is taken, because there's stories of films taking many, many years to finally make it to camera. Avi, why don't you jump off with that?
So I had a project that we had telefilm development money. We were in development for 9 years on it.
Wow.
And we had got telefilm to approve 2 years in a row. We needed to shoot in the Jewish section of Montreal, and we needed some SODEC money, and SODEC turned us down 2 years in a row because we were an Anglophone film. And so that sort of crushed us, and telefilm had given us $400,000 each year, and we had to turn it down, which was like turning down telefilm money is like, never do that, right?
No.
And so that was a real gut wrencher. And Home Free took 9 years to make too.
Wow.
Which between the first time that the script was presented to me as a producer only to finishing it and getting it out there, and the second feature I ever made took 16 years. It was in telefilm development for 16 years.
Yeah. That's crazy. And did you have situations where you had some financing in place, but because of the time that financing drops off or people pull out?
Well, the 16 years was all telefilm nitpicking the script, literally. Changes that they made us make, you give them the draft again and they make us change it back. And like, so it's those were in the days when you could actually apply for telefilm development money without having an envelope or success index or anything, right? And that was in the like 90s, early 2000s. And literally the same development people would make us change script. And they said, well, then they'd send us back to the drawing board. And, we changed our mind, but do this. And then we go do it. And then we changed our mind. I mean,
I think it's a really important thing that young producers and young writers need to understand, that there's times where, you could have a script that everyone loves, but to your point, Avi, it could take 13 years. I've got a project right now. It's been 7 years. I've got so much love for the project, but getting that across that final line, it's to say it's a marathon, not a sprint, is an understatement. So you really have to know that you're in it for the long haul.
The one thing I would go back to something you said earlier, Brett, which is the downside of going digital filmmaking is that there are numerous films that are being made that should never have been made. And I hate to say that, and Emily knows me, I'm Mr. Transparent. As a distributor, I see hundreds and hundreds of movies every year. And, I know people that have second mortgage their house to make a movie, or their parents I know a guy who his father gave him the money to make the movie, and now his father's had to sell the house because they went $400,000 over budget.
Oh my God.
So he's lost all of his original money and he will lose his house.
Oh my God.
And I would say to anybody, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
You don't do it.
No.
Yeah.
And the other thing is script is king.
Yeah.
And you may think your script is ready, but guess what?
Yeah.
It probably isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the best quality a writer can have is collaboration and the ability to take notes and go, okay, if you're so precious with it, it can't change.
Yeah.
It's not going to go very far. Like you've got to be able to listen and actually hear the notes. And granted, some notes aren't good. Some notes aren't right for the script, but you have to at least be able to listen and actually apply them where they're needed.
Yeah.
So anybody else have stories of long journeys to get to the end?
Yeah, there was a feature film that I produced and acted in called Candyland. It was based off the novel of the same name. We ended up getting Gary Busey to play a part in it, that's a whole other entire show in and of itself, right? That's a whole other show. He was very nice to me, but it's a whole other show for that adventure. But it took 10 years to get it off the ground, and namely because of just the subject matter. It's about two people who are struggling alcoholics and struggling with mental illness, and it's a dark, twisted love tale like Romeo and Juliet. And I was really compelled to get it made because, the first time I read it, The Machinist hadn't come out. So there was no Bale had gone down to 130 pounds. So in the course of the script, the protagonist loses all this weight. And so from an acting perspective, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to lose all this weight and do it. So when we finally got a chance to get it going 10 years later in 2014, it really came down to I ended up just self-financing the movie myself because I didn't want to wait any longer. And it was a horrible, horrible, gut-wrenching experience. The film, I think, turned out okay. But it was a long time. I don't think if I hadn't stepped in to just do it, I don't think the film ever would have gotten made because there were just too many things going against it, really from the DNA of the story. Like going back to what Avi was saying about movies that should be made, now almost 10 years after having made that film, I realized from a marketing and audience perspective, very small audience for that film. Would I still do it? 100%, mostly just for the acting experience. Like I followed through and lost 50 pounds from this weight. I was like 131 pounds and I did the whole thing, right?
You are 50 pounds lighter than you are right now?
Totally. Yeah. Hey, Google it. You can see the photos. It's nuts, right?
I'm not going to Google it.
A heartbreaking thing is that the film didn't really go anywhere after doing that. But at the same time, from an artist perspective, you get to push your boundaries. I was 29. It was the time to really color outside of the lines and see where you want it to go. And after that experience, it really made me understand, where I wanted to go, which was more business acumen, to get more of an understanding of marketing, of what films people actually want to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I got to be honest with you. If I had asked that question about how long does it take to get things done, and you all went, "Oh, I don't know, 6 months, a year," I would have been like, "Okay, good night, everybody," and I'd be done. It's killing me. I also wonder if, as from the actors in the room, the one thing actors face more than anything is rejection, constant rejection. If that kind of calluses you or thickens your skin for the constant rejection of trying to get a project going. Do you know what I mean? It's not the failure is not foreign, or the resistance is not foreign when you get into the producing side. I don't know if that translates or not. So,
look, you got to be Delulu to do any of it. Any of the stuff any of us are doing, you have to be Delulu to do.
That's
so fair. I just probably have another threshold of delusional attempts because you are, in the world of acting, it is, it has changed so much. If you've been in the game since pre-pandemic times even. And I feel like as artists in general, there should be more of a focus around mental health. That's a whole other conversation I could get into. When it comes to the rejection, what I do is I cry and I hug my pillow and then you move on to the next. And my phone, it sounds like my ear, I'm sorry if this has been happening this whole time, is like kind of like echoing. Is that happening when I'm speaking? Can you all hear that?
A little bit, but it's just twice as good.
Just slightly.
It's all good. Emily, what about
All
you?
right.
Any sort of stories of?
Yeah, I mean, I always find the worst when you have like these 3 pieces of the puzzle that you're putting together and you get 2, but you don't get the third, you know? It's like, what? But we're so close. Like I
Yes.
can just taste it right there. And, you know,
Yeah.
something falls through and you're like, so now we're not doing it? Are you
Yeah.
serious? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Because you're just so close. You know, a couple times we've had like, okay, two funders are in, we need the final, you know, one to go for it, and then that falls through for some reason. Or we've submitted applications and we get yes in one of the applications but a no in the other one, and you're like, but we needed both.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
like
find that hurts the most. But as you've mentioned, we're dealing with this rejection all the time. I mean, it's just a part of the business, and it does break you each time because you are passionate and involved, and you're investing yourself every time, but you have to just kind of, okay, on to the next one. And also sometimes you go, well, maybe we'll just put it aside for now. As people have said too, like this one only took me 20 years. But,
it's crazy.
It's funny because now what I'd rather focus on is alignment, because the coolest thing is when you finally click into that place. This is just, riding the train of actor to producer, writer, director, creator. When you are in that situation where you feel like you are going to either miss out or have to try and keep pitching projects, or you are trying to audition, and it can really be triggering for that people pleasing, external validation seeking. And sometimes it becomes this race where you just want to win, or you just want to eat. And I'm so grateful because all of this time of change and tumult in the industry, as many tears as there have been, and there's been economic distress, and the creativity seems to be shrinking, and the people in charge of green lights and funding don't seem to have the same ideals as the creators. But I do have hope because you grow and learn each time you step into, and that's why our show is called Coming Home, because that's like it's a play on words. You're coming home to your authentic voice and to your actual power, which for me right now means aligning with the right partners, people I'm excited to work with, aligning with the right projects. So it's been a beautiful journey. Like I won the CSA in 2022 for Best Actress in a movie for TV, directed by Sharon Lewis, starring myself, Paula Brancotti, who was also nominated. And it was a really great experience because, you go and do these movies, these companies make so many of them every year, but Sharon really gave us a chance to, and I, as the number one, was like, let's treat this like film camp and like really care. Can we come on to one of these projects and really care and see what happens? And now when I look back on it, and Sharon sent me a really beautiful card when I got the green light for Coming Home. Now when I look back on it, that piece was such an integral part of me learning about leadership and learning what using your voice looks like. And so that's been the experience of how I've tried to apply the things that hurt your heart, or the projects that don't go ahead, or the failures that you experience, or the times you really want someone to jump on board and they don't. Because we're not even talking about when you go in and pitch somebody your story who on the outset says, we're into this, we like this genre, and we want stuff like that. And you go in and you tell them your thing and they're like,
So I want to circle back in a second to talk about the best rejection letters we've got, because I've got some great ones. But before I do that, Emily, you mentioned something about sometimes you put one aside and kind of push it back till later and circle back to it. Do you guys have, or how big are the slates of projects do you have? Do you have 2 or 3 going at once, 5 or 6 going at once? Do you kind of balance between film and television, or do you just focus on a singular project? Avi, I'm guessing, Avi, you've got an extensive slate. Yes.
Yeah, right now we have 2 or 3. Oh, sorry, are we?
The thing is, you can't just have 1 or 2, because the reality of financing, especially the way the market is and everything, and trying to access government money, which I'm basically not really doing much of that anymore. It's mostly making super low budget private money. Just because I can't sit at the trough and pray to God for 5-6 months that I'm going to get money. So I have, I don't know, probably a dozen projects in various places of development. And there's no development money. So we're all developing basically on a hope and a prayer. And with my track record of making stuff, writers know that I'm as invested as they are, and we're in this together. And as you said earlier, Brett, like collaboration is everything. On Home Free, everybody had skin in the game as far as input on the script and everything else. So that's the kind of way that I work. I know Emily works very similar to that. You know, when you're making low budget movies, you know, you have to treat your crew and your cast right. And you have to make them know that they're important, and it's not they're working for me, they're working with me.
Totally.
And that's how I've worked for 30 years and until I can't do it anymore.
You know, the second feature I made was super low budget. I had a wealthy guy come to me and say, if I give you this much money, my daughter's an actress, will you write this movie? So we actually, it was all non-union. We rehearsed them for 2 months. We rehearsed the entire movie for 2 months, shot it over, I think, 10 days. Actually, Shayna, who you guys have in, she was our lead, one of our leads. And it did great at festivals. It looked beautiful. The crew was like, I mean, 7 people, shot at a guy's cottage in Muskoka, a beautiful cottage. But it was that same thing, Avi. It was this complete collaboration. And, you know, you've got like the sound guy holding a boat to get a steady shot. It's just, it's cool. Like that's actually filmmaking. Like that's like at the, you know, like the core of it.
Yeah.
So is your slate, Avi, is your slate just film, or do you have TV as well? Or
I've tried my hand at TV, and like I've gone to the broadcasters numerous times with pitches, and I believe in anthology. I don't believe in what they're doing right now, and so, or have been doing, and so I've gone and they say, "Oh no, you can't do that." Oh, yeah. So I've stayed completely away from TV, and almost 90% of my producing has been feature.
Okay. Anybody else dabbling in both spaces? I know you guys are doing a TV series.
Yeah, so we have feature film and then 2 series in development at various stages. And then we have a few others that we just have the ideas for, but haven't really put much time developing it just yet. And it's funny, we had 3 already on the go from last year, and then we had an opportunity to make a mini series with Bell 5, so we put all those on hold. Samora, luckily she can write good and she can write quickly, so she had that idea for Coming Home, and that seemed to have the most push and funding towards it, so we ran with that, and then now we're just getting back to everything else, to our regular slate.
Cool, that's awesome.
So it's funny that Robert says that, because James, at the beginning you had that cute story about as a kid making stuff with your comics and your action movies and stories even back then, and it made me think. I was home recently at my mom's house and for some reason dug through the boxes and found the first screenplay that I ever wrote.
Nice.
10.
Nice.
And the title of it was Big Baby and Dog Child.
That's a good title.
To a big baby and a dog child. So it was a really wild moment of Robert saying Samora can write quickly. That's hilarious because that first draft really blows. But I'm excited because you guys are all here while I get to have a moment where I land a point I've been sending to Robert this whole time. Start writing those stories that you have outlined, and then you will feel the nightmare pain of it at times. Sometimes it's beautiful and you're the muse, but this is your sign.
So just to jump in to tell you how much I suck as a host, I was supposed to be throwing to videos through this. So Avi, you were explaining about your slate. So this is a good time, because I'm getting text from Charlene, to let's look at Avi's producer's reel, please. was
That's
awesome.
great.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I'd hire that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that there's probably lots of actors watching this. So, as producers, just with your producer hat on, what do you look for in actors when you're either seeing them in person or watching their self-tape or their audition tapes? What qualities are you looking for in actors?
I'll go first. For me, having now stepped on the other side of the camera, I love seeing actors really bringing their authentic self. You know, it's as cliched as the Lion's King with like, be yourself, you know, is the lesson. I've noticed time and time again, the auditions that really pop are when people are bringing really their authentic voice, and they're very relaxed and they're unashamed to bring that authentic voice to it, even if it might seem slightly counterintuitive to what's on the page for the character. They've always been the ones that end up getting shortlisted for me, because I just find it interesting and unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Emily, what about you?
I agree, absolutely. That's great feedback. I mean, I like it when you're relaxed. We want you to get the part, you know, we want to cast the part. It's, you know, because we've done a lot of our own casting. And yeah, when you come in and you're enjoying yourself and making mistakes isn't that big of a deal. You know, it happens to everyone. It happens on set. It happens when you get the part. So like, just enjoy the audition as much as you would being on the set, because it's all part of the process. And as I said, time and time again, we want you to do well in that room, right? We want to see the best of you. We're never looking to be like, oh, you messed that up, right? So yeah, just have fun. Yeah.
For
It's
me,
cool.
I mean, I watch tons of stuff, like Canadian films primarily, because I want to know who's
that's cool.
Who's the talented people out there. And, you know, the stack of Blu-rays and DVDs behind me is a lot of Canadian content. And I, like Emily said, like most of my indie features, I don't have a casting director. We can't afford a casting director. So I have relationships with many of the agents. And in regards to Home Free, I knew who I wanted to be in the movie right from the day I decided that I was going to make the film. And they were part of the Zoom table read that we had during COVID. So it's a matter of knowing. It's like good crew people, good DPs, good production designers, like watch what we're making here, not what's being made elsewhere. Because if you're intending on making your own content here, you need to know who's out there, who's top drawer at their game, and start talking to them and getting to know what they're looking to do and the kind of work that they want to do. And are they collaborators? Talk to people that worked with them and really get a feel for what do they like to work with.
Can you play with them? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Play with them. Yeah. There's a really cool aspect, just to stay on this for a second, Avi, from an actor's perspective in a self-marketing and self-promotion way. If you can find your way into these little cool indie films as a non-union actor, and someone like you, Avi, sees them, if you reach out to a casting director and say, hey, I watched this film, can we get this person to come in? I guarantee that actor, that casting director will bring them in for every job that they're casting, because they've been validated by a notable producer. Do you know what I mean? So it's this kind of ability to, on their own, push their career forward.
Well, what we used to see, and not too long ago, was the same actors coming in, and by the casting director. I did this movie with Mike McGowan called Score Hockey Musical, and we specifically asked for certain people to come and audition. And when we got the casting list, and this was in the days when we would sit in a casting room and people would walk in and audition in front of you. And these people weren't on the list. And we go, why aren't these people on the list? Well, we didn't think they were right for the part. Hold on a second here. You're not making those decisions. We are. Yeah. So we want to see these people. Yeah.
I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, except to say one more thing, because it bugs the. I think it's a cultural difference between Canadians and Americans. Canadians are very, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to cause a problem. What if I bring this actor in and they screw up? I'll look bad in front of the producer. Whereas Americans are like, fuck it, I'm going to go for it. I want to win. I want to find the next gem. I want to be the person that discovers so-and-so.
Yeah.
I think that's at the core. And I think that applies to every industry in our country. But at the core, that's why it's harder to get the new people in the room in Canada. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah, like it's nice when you can think outside of the box, and I love that. We love to see new talent, different talent, and also, you know, a different type, like not a type for a role. You know, it's just like a story. Mm-hmm. A story can be told by many different people, I think. And I remember trying to convince some people to bring different types of people into the room for different parts. For example, my friend was like, oh, well, you could dance in this. I said, well, I'm pregnant right now. He's like, oh, there's no pregnant people allowed to dance, you know? Yeah. So it's just that kind of thinking where you go, yeah, that's cool. Actually, pregnant people do other things than just be pregnant in a story. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
Be a story about a pregnant person. Or...
And Emily, that's a great note for actors who are sitting in the waiting room wondering why they're there, because they're different than everybody else in the room.
Right.
That might be exactly why you're there.
Yeah.
So not to let that get into your head.
Yeah.
And also,
that's great.
On that cultural thing that you were talking about, Brett, much of my work as an actress on screen has been in American productions, and like Toronto is where I'm at right now. And that's another thing I would love to talk to you about, James, the Vancouver scene and all of that. I digress. Production here in Toronto that for the Canadian actor is so tricky because that cultural difference that you referred to is so at play. The way that you tape for whether it's network or whatever, Canadian, US, sometimes UK, American, you have to like tweak that. So at the Actors Work Studio, that's my baby, my business. I've been training actors from time, and the whole passion came from the same thing that made me want to create Bet and D, my feature film that we're going to go shoot, is this idea of representation in a nuanced way that isn't box checking and is not only along the traditional DEIB, you know, encompassing everything, which includes, in my opinion, Canadian stories and Canadian creators. But when you get too fixated on like what that's supposed to look like, and I guess this touches on what everyone's been saying of like wanting a wild card when you're seeing tapes or wanting to think outside the box. Yeah. That's the way that hopefully we would be able to think about casting. But it's so true. The casting directors for the American shows don't want to rock the boat too much. And like for our show, we were so blessed because Robert and I, for Hold One, I got a Canada Council grant. So I don't know if anyone might be watching this who's in the US. I've spoken to my artist friends there. It's much harder to get grants. And we made this short. And both times, notable casting directors came out and did us a favor because we were looking for specific roles. And we paid for a few permits for the first one. However, foolishly, I was trying to avoid that. But yeah, it's a continuing conversation of finding and breaking new talent, especially as it comes to underrepresented communities, and saying, well, maybe this role was written for X and Y, but perhaps maybe I will see women and female identifying persons for it. And maybe that character's age range could be bigger. So yeah, it's one of those things. When we got all of our tapes, it was like, I was so happy to see all of these actors that I didn't know. I liked that a lot because I knew I had people in mind, and I was like, but let's have them pull and let us see who everybody is. And it was so great because it's really true. All the actors watching, it really is true. If you do your thing in the tape, like do your thing, and they remember you for other stuff. So
for sure. And as we just said, everyone in this panel is working on multiple projects. So there's all kinds of things at play. And just to stay on the actors thing for one more point, I think it's important that actors, especially newer actors, understand where the decision-making process comes from for who's going to hire them. Because with all due respect to the casting directors, they're not making the decision of who hires them. They facilitate the meeting between the actor and the people who hire them, which are you guys or directors and showrunners and producers, but the people actually that are making the project are the ones that do the actual hiring. Certainly casting directors can hone down the choices who they think would be best, but to Avi's point, where he requested people at an audition and they weren't there, it's important actors understand where the actual decision-making process comes from.
Yeah, so I like to tell actors, especially emerging ones, that there's a whole process to getting casted. Like first, you gotta get your agent to trust you so they can send you out. Then once they send you out, then you gotta get casting to trust you. So then they're always going to be calling on you and requesting you and thinking of you when roles come out. And then the next level is getting producers to get to know you, like you, trust you. So then you have to work with them a few times. Then they're thinking of you for other projects that they do. And then the big one's the networks.
Yeah.
And that's the stages that an actor has to go through.
Yeah. And even
really control when it gets to that point, right? Like we try, like at the Actors Work Studio, when I can't remember, it was you, James, I think, who was saying when you wanted to transition into making your own stuff, being like, I need to learn the business part of show business. That's one of the things, especially as Canadian performers, like I'm a big believer that you don't know necessarily what your path is. If you're a storyteller and you're an artist, you just want to follow that. But on the flip side of it, knowing the business, and I think things like networking is underutilized a lot here in Canada because we're just not primed to talk about ourselves.
We're apologetic.
And we don't get as much PR training as the US do, because by the time many of the roles come here, there's a point system for the union. But for me as a representative, as an elected councillor for Actor Toronto, one of my biggest passions is making sure Canadian performers are seen and not just given the runaround to usurp the union rules, about getting Canadian performers into those large roles, like career-making roles. So it's a whole thing of why you have to be empowered as an actor and learn the part of it that says, what do I care about? And how do I make sure the people who need to know about it know? And it's not always just auditioning. It can be really fruitless. So the multi-hyphenate moment that we're experiencing and that I'm experiencing now is really helping me assuage some of that anxiety of saying, I'm going to put all this pressure on these tapes or these auditions or these roles I do or do not get. So it's a conversation that we've been having for a long time in Canada, and now going into producing after having been a leadership voice at the union for so long and being an actor for so long. It's very interesting to see the intersections and see the contradictions and the juxtapositions of the interests of the producers and how the system is set up in Canada for producers to make stuff that makes them have to make certain decisions. I won't lie to you. There was stuff I had to decide when I was show running for the show coming home. And as the leader, the decisions you don't want to make, that you simply have to make your days, to make your budget. And all of that was a real eye opener. And it's a conversation that we hope to see evolve more and more and more. So many studios came here, and it's like, well, what do you do while you're here, right? Paramount, Netflixes, the Amazons, the Disneys, like, because some just do like shockingly little when they come, and the tax credit that we have, we're so grateful to have it. So we have the amount of production that we have, but in terms of amplifying Canadian voices in a nuanced way, number one mission of Hold One Entertainment.
Okay. I'm going to show another trailer now. I'm getting the hang of this. Okay, we're going to show Emily's trailer for Less Than Kosher. Emily, I guess, and Avi both.
I was doing blow last night on Yom Kippur. I'm like barely Jewish. I skipped out on my own bat mitzvah. You can't drop me because I drop you!
Have you ever tried liturgical singing?
But I don't want to be a cantor.
But as a cantor, you'd make money.
Have you met my son?
I'm on mushrooms. You want some?
You're famous for singing Judeo-pop.
Judeo-pop? That's terrible.
You have to picture it on TikTok.
I gotta poop.
No better button than I got.
That's fun.
That was great. That was great. I just want to circle back to something Robert was saying about all the different steps you have to go through as an actor to actually get in the right spot. On top of that, you have to be on your game that day. You have to have interpreted the script the same way the writer did. You have to be able to ask the right questions in the room. And then on top of that, there's the subjectivity of the view of the people that are on the other side of the table. So many things have to line up, which is for me, and I think sounds like for most of you here, what inspired me to flip to the other side of the storytelling, where I can actually be involved in, minimizing the subjectivity of it by being a creator behind it. So with that said, for the folks listening or watching that would like to start producing, what would your advice be to a new person maybe coming out of school or making a shift in their career, maybe even like Avi did, going from one industry to the other completely? What's a good piece of advice for new folks? Avi, why don't we start with you?
Go back to school and study to be a vet.
And see.
I mean, it's hard, but listen, if you want to be a producer, you have to know what everybody's job is. So you got to work in various departments. Like I was a PA, a location PA, then an ALM, then an LM, then an APM, then a PM. In working on shorts that we do, like Emily and I have done, where we're doing multiple roles, not just producing. We're on the ground, we're working as a grip, we're working in wardrobe, we're working in craft, we're doing all these things. Like, you can't be a producer until you understand what everybody else's job is and hold respect for them and the job that they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to call yourself a producer, and what I'm finding today is it's like putting a quarter in one of those little machines, and you 25 cents, and you get a plastic ring. Some people are handing out producer credits like it's candy, and you got to earn it, right? And so I just feel like you got to really know everything that there is to know about it, not just financing, not just a great script, but there's a whole pile of 100+ things that need to be right to make it all happen.
Yeah, I would add. I think that was well said, Avi. I mean, I think you need to, if you genuinely want to be a producer and a filmmaker, you have to wholeheartedly fall in love with the craft and be a student of storytelling. And you know, you don't necessarily have to be you know, the best at everything, but as Avi said, you should at least be dangerous enough in some of the main things so that you at least know. Because as a producer, you're steering a ship, and you have to know how to basically tell the crew, like, no pun intended, where to go. In terms of like starting off and making, say, your first short film or your first feature, I always tell people starting out, like, do something try and create something that you can create with literally no money, with no big budget, something that's a story that's contained, that's personal, that, you know, if you put it on the page, you'd be able to execute it as soon as it's on the page. Because truth of the matter is that most first films or first short films are just pieces of garbage anyway. So you kind of almost have nothing to lose, right? But at least if you're doing it that way, you can make progressive steps, as opposed to, you know, I've had people who go, well, the first script that I've written, you know, is like Avatar, and I'm going to need $100 million. And I'm like, well, it's tone deaf. I think you should write a short film that you can produce for $1,500, make all the sandwiches yourself, and, you know, find yourself a really good editor and a really good cinematographer that brings some nice lenses, and you'll get some production value up, and then maybe it'll work. And then you just kind of build from there.
I think, anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think they both touched on such great points, but you really are. I said earlier I produced a film by myself for the first time, but I didn't do it by myself, right? Because it's your entire team, and every single piece of that team plays its part and is important, you know? So you need to be respectful of those players. You have to appreciate their time, their energy, because I mean, the hours, as we all know, in film and television are ridiculous, right? So you're going to be with those people for a long time. So get to know them, understand what makes them work, and work with them, right? So we're all going towards a common goal. And I just find too often that some leaders are very disrespectful to others. You know, let's treat each other with kindness. And I worked with one person, and I remember when I first started in the industry, I was afraid to make a mistake, right? Because it was, at that time, it was kind of, you could get fired very, very easily, where now it's like, I worked with someone who was like, just tell me when you make the mistake and let's solve that problem together. Because you are a problem solver as a producer, right? So but if people aren't willing to share and work together and talk about it, then you're not going to find that answer together.
And I think, like with anything, failure is a huge thing. That's the only way you're going to figure it out, is to fuck it up. Like that's how it works, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Nobody
be
hits it out of
adaptable, right?
yeah, that's you can't learn it until you're actually doing it. Actually, in that second feature that Shayna was in, we, as I said, it was a non-union cast, and we were doing ADR. And for one of the leads came in, and the director and I said, "Have you done ADR before?" And she said, "Yeah, I took it in school. I learned it in school. Totally cool." So we got her in the booth, and the director and producer of the session was giving her notes, and we started to go. And within 10 seconds, she was like, "I have no idea what I'm doing." Because until it's the same thing with taking acting classes. Cool, but when you're on set and the lights go on, and you have to actually experience it and do it to really truly learn it. Which is, to your point, James, doing these little short films and getting your feet wet that way, I think, is the way to go. Anybody else?
Yeah.
If you're actor performers, some of you may be pre-union. If you're pre-union, you have all the freedom in the world to get your friends together and shoot something. It works. But if you are in the union and you're wondering, well, where do I start? One cool thing is called the digital self-promotion, and you can make a project for 5 minutes or under and not have to have so many of the often insurmountable challenges in front of you to making a union project. So you get some friends together, you make something and play around with camera angles and just have fun. I mean, I'm just learning. I'm on one hand really excited to learn, on the other hand so scared. I'm so scared what the future holds. This is a treacherous path, being a producer, but it's exciting too, because if you're making your own stuff and you're with your friends and you're going to learn about the different departments, it can be a lot of fun. And I think it all comes down to the culture that we're in. We're in a very disposable kind of a culture. And I think when you commit yourself to wanting to learn and follow your passion for the craft, and you learn about all those other departments, and you humble yourself and you get good at things, like the first scripts that I wrote, and still now I know there's so much growth ahead. All writers will tell you that. But the scripts I wrote in the beginning were awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Mine
and
are
then
still awful.
You read and you learn and you give them out to people. I think it was you, Brett, earlier who said about being able to take a note and take directions. Like you really have to be in flow. It's not about being really humble, because Canadians do that a lot. And it's not about being overly arrogant, which sometimes you see out in the world. I'm not going to name countries, but you want to be in flow. And that's when you're going to be able to offer something pure. And I really hope that we'll be able to do that, continue as Canadian creators.
Let's, Charlene, can we show James's trailer? And then I have 2 more questions for you guys after that. And Charlene, if you can, I don't know if you can hear me.
My partner taught me everything I know. It's pretty much the only family that I got. He's not much with his fists, but he's pretty good with his mouth. We got the money. We always do.
We're under attack! You good, kid?
Do what you do best.
Run, kid! Run!
Bring me the thief.
If she's sending, who I think she's sending.
Don't make me chase you.
I don't care about the cash. Just my partner. Drive, kid!
So what's the plan?
The plan is to rescue my partner. Old friend of mine used to say, get fast, get going. Means never linger on a job. Otherwise, you're begging to get your ticket punched. Well, you lingered too long on this one, partner. Let's have some fun. Come with the money, make this easy on everybody. I suggest you save any tricks.
What's he gonna be? He's finishing the job, kid!
Fair warning, Hoss. We will show up well prepared. Me too.
Hold on, kid!
Okay, I have so many questions. So that was the first one?
That's the second one. That's the one that just came out.
So if you don't mind, if you don't want to say, that's totally cool. What was your budget on that?
Everyone always asks me that. I'm not allowed to say. I've been pre-pressed or prepped pre-press.
Okay.
But I will say it's well, you never have enough money when you're making something, but that movie was made under insurmountable odds. That was a culmination of going back to what everyone's talking about in terms of having a fantastic team.
Yeah.
Lots of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of, producing, wheeling and dealing, like there's a helicopter in that trailer.
Yes. And
I told my producer, this is how much money we have. I want you to go get a helicopter for me. And he went and got one.
Wow.
and that's really what it came down to. It was a wild, wild adventure.
It looks amazing. So congratulations. It looks fantastic. Really well done. Okay. So what would you guys like to see in the Canada film and TV industry? What do differently for it to grow? And what do you want to see? How do you want to see it change to evolve and grow? And Avi, you have the most experience, I think, on this panel, so maybe you're the best person to jump in with this.
I mean, to me, it's always should have been best script wins, and it's not. And I just feel like the films that are being picked in the traditional financing scenario of government funding, it's a who's who in many cases.
So how do we fix that?
Well, I don't know if that'll be fixed in my lifetime. I think that it's super broken and it needs to be completely ripped apart and started over again. I mean, I've been advocating for these kinds of things for years and years and years. And, I sit on committees with the CMPA to talk about this. And, it's the same people that are producing television series. It's the same people getting $5 to $10 million to make a feature film.
It almost sounds like it's equivalent to what you said before about the same actors coming in all the time for the.
Yeah, I mean, I swear to God, every movie had, Don McKellar and I can't remember her name now, but it was this Molly Parker. Every movie had Don McKellar and Molly Parker. Yeah. And it's just like we have such an amazing talent pool of actors, writers, directors, crew members that aren't given their chance, and we need to make change.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to see more risk taking, and not going with the common stories as we've already said, and the same performers, the same producers, the same directors. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's have a bit more risk being taken, and that way. And if because obviously there is a security risk sometimes, right? With taking, let's try this new talent, but that's kind of why we started it. We're like, let's take this person who's been a first AC, make them a DP, and we'll have a mentor on set, right? So it would be lovely to see that happen with some funding bodies too. And there are some emerging artist funds that are out there, but sometimes it's like, okay, now there's too many emerging in this one platform. I worked as a mentor on this thing. I'm like, whoa, you got a new producer, a new director, and a new writer. Like, come on, let's
too far.
So you got to find the balance. You got to have some emerging and have some seasoned and mix it together, right?
But do you think that's part of the challenge, is that you're talking about you'd like to see more risk-taking in what I believe is a non-risk-taking culture, a very sort of, I don't want to rock the boat culture, but the boat needs to be rocked to actually.
But I mean, I think sometimes, the Talent to Watch is a perfect example of setting up these feature filmmakers for failure, because the projects that they get picked, Telefilm doesn't read the scripts. So they're financing movies, giving a filmmaker $250,000, and they haven't even read a script.
What's it based on then?
It's based on their video and their materials.
Wow.
But I was a mentor for NSI for the 2022 Talent to Watch, and one of the projects that was picked was only half written.
Wow.
Wow.
And if you ask Telefilm, they'll tell you they don't read the scripts. I mean, how can you?
That blows my mind.
I may never see Telefilm may just completely wipe me off the face of the earth after this, but I just don't understand how you give people money.
Yeah.
And I've been asked to mentor some of these projects, and they go, "Well, I've read your script. You need to." Well, Telefilm doesn't think so because they gave us the money.
God. Oh my God.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That just feels like a broken system, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like something like that would be great. Say you have a seasoned writer working with a new director, right?
Yeah.
And then that's a balance of how we can bring that together. And then, okay, this one's the new writer working with a writer mentor, and mentorship I think is huge, and it could be a way to take a risk. But I know that costs more money, right? Because then you're hiring 2 people for the price, for one role. But it's important, I think.
I think the number one thing that will help industry. What was your question, Brett? Can you say it again?
What do you want to see change? How you want to see this? What could change to improve the industry for film and television in Canada?
Discoverability, number one. And if anyone took the CRTC hearings, that's going to be really important, especially with the streamers. Discoverability for Canadian projects. It's such new terrain. We've all been used to having the streamers, and the system, like Avi said, is broken in terms of the discoverability piece, and there, especially as it pertains to diverse voices. But for Canada, with all the deals the streamers get when you come here, the tax credit system, we need more support and infrastructure and discoverability. And then I can't remember who, but someone earlier was talking about understanding the branding part of it and the marketing. I think that there is a real opportunity for Canada to get better at that. And number one, understanding what the appetite is for audience, because this navel gazing kind of creation, A, isn't working, and B, the resistance to how the cultural identity of Canada has changed, the resistance to that is futile. So the more because the streamers won't give transparency. They're winning on all of the negotiations in terms of residuals for actors. So there's no transparency there, but we're also missing that analytics key, I think, for us as Canadians to market projects. So that's prong one of that for me. But also it's so disheartening to see series specifically that get a green light, they get a production order, and they shoot what is often a beautiful season. I can't help but think of something like The Porter, which swept Canadian Screen Awards. Is stunning to look at. I mean, so many of projects like that don't have the support, the discoverability to let the audience find it. And then also the branding and the marketing to make sure that people can find it. And that's where that Canadian thing comes into play. We're so humble, or are we being cheap, or do we not have the money, or is it the lack of forethought for how the industry has changed? And you really have to look at how audiences consume and say that, to check the box and say, we greenlit that show, or we made a Black show, we made a female, we did that. And that is just not working. That to me, those two things is like the biggest opportunity that we have to really get a handle on creating for the future and getting an identity. Because countries like Ireland, there's so many places that really carve out their artistic identity. And I think Canada, we're a little bit behind on that.
But again, I think that's a little bit of swimming upstream, because it's a cultural thing. It's even beyond this industry. It's just, as by nature, it's a very, we don't, like you said earlier, we don't like to talk about ourselves. We don't like to say, hey, I'm great at this, because they're like, oh my God, listen to this guy. You know what I mean? So it's a tricky cultural thing. Okay, so I have one last question. And Emily, you touched on the idea of mentorship. And if I understand the backstories right, I feel like Avi kind of mentored you through this, at the beginning of this. So do you guys all, Avi, do you have mentors? Do you guys all have people that kind of not held your hand, but inspired you and kind of mentored you to pursue the career you have now?
I mean, I spent my early part of my career just watching and listening and not speaking, and just absorbing as much as I could. And most of the people that I learned from were women producers, women production managers, who sort of were kind enough to let me watch and let me learn. And now I basically believe that I give more than I take. And I've mentored tons of, if you look at my resume, I've executive produced many, many shows. I don't put my name on a project. I actually roll up my sleeves and I go through from development all the way through to delivery with these filmmakers. And because they don't teach producing in film school. People come out of film school and they have no idea what producing is. And then, and so they need to be shown how to do it and from the ground up. And so, which I find like crazy that they don't teach producing in film school. And I've been teaching an online producing course for the last 10 years. I think Emily's taken it, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, there's people like Emily and myself and many others that, you know, are happy to mentor really good projects with really great collaborative people. And if we believe in the project, we'll get dirty.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Like I was going to say, even just from this panel, you know, it's like, let's reach out to each other too, right? Like sometimes I was just in Europe and I met so many people, and, you know, you have that thing where you're like, well, I don't know them that well. And, you know, like maybe it's kind of rude to say, hey, I'm going to ask you this question. And like, let's get rid of that, right? Like even just us here, great. Message me whenever. Let's be in touch. Let's share information. And maybe, you know, I don't know. I always feel like share, empower, let's learn and give to each other, because the only way that we're going to kind of lift each other up and continue to grow. So
couldn't agree more.
So keep in touch.
James, anybody sort of inspire you? And
100%. I mean, I know I've been silent for the last couple of questions because I think everyone's been answering, you know, really succinctly about what needs to happen with the industry. I'll backtrack to that real quickly. The only thing that I would say, or the only thing that I could probably add to it further is, I completely agree that we need to be braver as Canadian artists. I think that, you know, the discoverability, like you're saying, Samora, is non-existent in so many ways. And it's been something where, you know, I've found it being it's frustrating, because when I look at the landscape of talent that we have in Canada, it's the crap out of a lot of American stuff I'm watching. It's just not getting seen. And you know, it's an odd thing, because Canada's been a service industry now for, you know, since the 80s all the way up. So all of our craftspeople, all of our technicians, they're really, really good. So, you know, I really implore people to understand the market. We have to band together and share and communicate more, understand what the worldwide market is asking for, you know, knowing how tough it is from a financial perspective and a financial model, which is in flux right now and is kind of crumbling and is going to, you know, turn into something different. But also too, I think it comes down to creation. And not being ashamed of what it is that you want to create, whether it is something that is, you know, really culturally relevant, or if it's a really cheesy action film like I produced. You know, it's not going to change the world, but it was something that I wanted to do. And, you know, I see a lot of people not giving themselves permission to have a voice. And, you know, Brett, that could be a Canadian thing, probably is. Doesn't that have to end?
No, of course.
I think it has to end. I think we have to be way more vocal. Because there's a lot of other people. You know?
I don't put that out there as like the roadblock, so forget about it. I'm saying that's the hurdle that has to be overcome. That's all.
I agree. Oh, and I agree. I didn't mean it like that. My point, I was saying it more as kind of like a statement of like this, you know, being polite or apologetic kind of thing as Canadians. Like, you know, we're also pretty badass. I mean, think about all the wars that we went in and kicked ass in, you know, in history. I say we access that side because, you know, making movies or making TV shows, it's kind of like going to war, right?
Look, if we're going to kick ass and we need a helicopter, we know who to call.
Fair enough.
So,
Robert, I would say that. I'll end with that. And then I would say that the greatest mentor that I had, her name was Lori Triolo. She lives in New York now. She teaches at the neighborhood playhouse. She taught me the respect, the craft of acting, taught me all of Meisner and all of many other techniques, which translated into all of the other different sectors of filmmaking. Probably the bravest, most outspoken person that I've ever met. And so, I tip my hat to her. If anyone ever has a chance to, and is brave enough to get taught under her, because she's quite frightening in a good way.
What was her name again?
Her name is Lori Triolo. She teaches at the neighborhood playhouse.
Awesome. Great.
In New York.
Okay, great. Thank you, James. Robert, what about you?
I guess so for us, it's an emerging production company. Just trying to make a name for ourselves. We got a lot of help from our mentors. I'd say Jennifer Holness and Seth Sutherland. Like, even as an actor, I've attended their workshops. They've had live streams and stuff that we've attended. So they've always been someone that we can call on, a text to ask for some quick advice. I know when we were shooting Coming Home, Samora reached out to a few of her mentors to get advice on directing, show running, how to write her script. So it's very integral. And just to talk about this whole Canadian industry as a whole, I was talking about this with one of my colleagues the other night. It's like, when we went to TIFF this year, we saw so many amazing Canadian films. Like, out of the majority that we saw, the best ones were Canadian. But then after the festival, we don't hear about these films at all.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't find them. They're not discoverable. So it's like, they just have all this funding, all this push to get them to TIFF.
Yeah.
And then they
look, if I can just interject with a story that will. So my first feature, I had an actor named Donald Faison in it, who was as Donald describes himself, the black guy in Scrubs. So, so he was amazing to work with. We had an ensemble cast: Tony Napo, Jefferson Brown, John Doerr, Pat Thornton. This amazing cast, and it was a true ensemble. So the film got picked up by E1, and it was doing really well. And I started to do this promotional round. And I was trying to get, so we were interviewed on E-Talk and a bunch of the talk shows. And they wanted Donald Faison for the interview. And I was like, great, I can give you Donald, but I want to bring in Tony Napo as well, or Jefferson Brown, because I'm trying to promote these Canadian actors so Canadian audiences start to put faces to names. And they were like, no, we only want Donald. These are Canadian news outlets, Canadian entertainment outlets, ET Canada, E-Talk. We only want Donald. I'm like, you can have Donald. We'll get him on satellite from LA, but can we have Tony and Jefferson in the room? We only want Donald. And I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, how do you, it's a Canadian movie. We're in Canada, but they only wanted to interview Donald. Like, that was kind of the banging my head on the wall with the, this was like 11 years ago. So maybe it's changing. I don't know. But so to your point, Robert,
it's still the same.
It's still the same. To your point, Robert, where the films get seen that are great and then they vanish, like that's the frustrating part, right? So Samora, before I get to you, we have two more videos. So I want to show Robert's demo reel or demo tape, and then we'll come back for
Hold One's demo. It's Hold One's demo reel.
Pardon me?
It's Hold One's demo reel.
Hold One's. Okay, Hold One's
demo reel at all. I do not believe it. Let's tee this up properly, okay?
Okay.
Let's just,
okay.
Yeah. What is it we're about to watch? We are about to watch a clip from a short film that Hold One Entertainment produced. I wrote it, in it. Some of the Canadian Screen Award-winning stunt coordinators did the stunts for it. We had a collaborative team together and work basically. I'm not going to say what we did. What we did. And it's called Saffron, and it has just got accepted to another festival, the Birmingham Festival in the UK. So we're excited.
You should have been hosting. Go ahead, roll it. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Wow.
I was right. It was a
Really
demo.
good.
You were right. That was great. Okay, I think that's it. Do you guys have anything else you want to chime in with before we wrap this up? Charlene, I think did I do everything? Charlene, I think I did. I'm never going to be asked back. Thank you everyone for sharing your insights. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think that's it. So I'm so sorry, guys. I literally have never done this before. So Charlene, am I to read the upcoming guests part of this?
At the end, does everybody say who they are and what they're working on next that they're excited about?
Did we do that already? I think we did.
You guys watch Hot Ones, that show where the people eat hot wings online?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You plugs. Everybody do it. Robert, go.
Whoa, a lot of our stuff is tight-lipped right now, but we have a few projects. We can talk about Ben and D coming next year to camera.
Pre-pro.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'll jump. That sounds very exciting, Robert. I've got 2 action films that are slated to shoot next year. I'm just kind of waiting on which goes first. And then I have a horror film that I'm executive producing that shoots in Q1 of next year. And then I've got 2 life story options that I've just kind of closed up, which I would love to shoot in 2026 or 2027, much bigger scope than I've ever done before. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to get a lot more professional people than me to help work on that.
We're working on a thriller feature. We hopefully are developing our web series into a TV show, and we're going to be doing some co-productions in Italy. So that's
nice.
Hopefully it all works out.
Avi?
I got nothing. I mean, I've got 12 projects in development. I mean, you know, and I'm busy with my distribution company and sales company. So,
yeah,
you know, that's what I'm doing.
I think your definition of I've got nothing and other people's is different.
Looking for projects, more projects.
All right. All right.
Anyway.
Okay. So upcoming guests, Monday, December 9th, we have 2 of the most powerful women, busiest women in Canadian TV, Amy and Tassie Cameron of Cameron Pictures. They're the executive producers of Law and Order Toronto, 1010. That was a little 1010. Never mind, Law and Order joke. The amazing Luther Brown. He's a Toronto choreographer who is now based in Hollywood. And he's choreographing music videos and films for celebrities such as J-Lo, Janet Jackson, Gwen Stefani, Missy Elliott, and much more. Casting director and choreographer Amy Wright will be the host. Thank God, not me. I'm kidding. I just.
Oh, Brett, you're too hard on yourself. You were great.
Amy Wright will also be bringing the cast of the TV series The Next Step for the show. And stay tuned for surprise appearances from the Whistler Film Festival, the band Blue Rodeo, and a few casting directors. Thank you to all of our amazing guests. Thank you for watching Entertainment 411, and good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Thanks for having us.
Bye. Thank you.